talk about.
Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by the Draft Professor. The Draft Professor is a group of podcasters bringing you daily draft podcasts and is home to the only dynamic mock draft simulator which allows fans to mock draft against other fans. The Draft Professor Simulator features a first-round challenge, 5 unique one-round drafts. The Draft Professor Simulator features a second-round challenge, 10 unique 2-round drafts. All mock drafts are always picking against the fans and draft analysts which use the simulator. Every mock, every pick, every time. The Draft Professor also features ranked players functionality, where you can rank your favorite players at every position. Optionally, you can add tiers to your rankings to show what round you have the players graded in. The Draft Professor also features draft a team functionality, which allows users to snake draft a team of 22 players to demonstrate your my guys, compare player strengths, and discuss draft prospects in a way no other mock draft simulator can. Thank you for tuning in to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. This episode will begin shortly. Well, welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. This is our early Tuesday edition. So we still have Parker and Drew coming up at 10 p.m.
What are they talking about?
Bengals draft. So it's actually going to be a really similar podcast, except it's for the Bengals.
Nice. Love it.
Nice.
So we've got 3 Bills fans here, and we're going to be talking about the Bills draft. But if your team needs a defensive tackle, a wide receiver, an edge, or a corner, I think nearly everything we talk about is also going to apply to a lot of other teams. But before we begin, like, Alex, it's good to have you back. It's good to see you.
How's it going?
It's going well. Randall, always good to see you as well.
Always good to see you. It's a beautiful night, and always ready to talk football.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Alex, actually, I thought your suggestion there as we fired the podcast up was a good one. So, Alex, what is your, let's say, draft strategy at a high level?
Yeah, so like a 50,000 foot view or whatever you want to call it. I just think that from the start off, for me individually, I was Brandon Helm saying laugh. Okay. So for me individually, I look at it from a free agency perspective first. I'm like, what's the most likely thing for us to do based on what our needs are, right? So I know Randall and I talked a little bit about this beforehand, because I think it'll come up later. Is the only reason I want to bring this up is with like the edge position, for instance. Like, we need a very specific type of position, right? So I'm not going to maybe have edge as high on my board, if at all, in the early rounds, just because unless something crazy falls, like Abdul Carter falls down or something like that. But I mean, ultimately, overall, I look at it from kind of like, we don't really know yet because free agency. But for me, like, there are certain positions that I see are like are slam dunk. It's going to have to be free agency to me. Like cornerback 2 to me is going to be free agency. Safety, free agency. Like, they don't put certain positions out there with rookie draft picks typically. Like, we saw what happened with Cole Bishop last year. We saw, like, even with Kyer Elam in year 1, he got some spot duty, but I think that they maybe shook them a little bit on their strategy going forward with that kind of role. And it seems like with Benford there, they've been pretty happy with bringing in a vet to be right next to him. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I guess mine's probably going to be more organic as Randall and I and yourself, Jim, talk about this throughout the process. But I think that, you know, overall, like, the nuance of it, especially with like edge and a few other positions, I think that, you know, for me, it might be a difference on my board than maybe where Randall's is.
No, for sure. I mean, we all know, we all agree as us three is what Big Baller Bean does is he attacks free agency to go for the BPA in the draft. So he's not pigeonholed into it. So I agree. Alex, when it comes down to it, he's right. The safety free agencies look good. The cornerback free agencies look really good. A couple other positions do. personally, since Rapp is on has his last year that he's going to play out on 2025, I personally see us going safety through the draft and then maybe picking up, like, we talked about DeMar Hamlin, if he's like a 2-year, $6 million sort of thing, if the market doesn't bite. That's a possibility, but I see us going through safety in the draft. Cornerback definitely free agency because we need somebody with a high floor to go on the side of Christian Benford. We should be gunning for that number 1 seed, to be honest, to get that bye. And that's not starting a rookie at the other side as a quarterback sort of thing. Let him grow into that position for 2026. Yeah. Realistically, for the draft, I know we're going to talk about it. I know it's almost annoying, but Myles Garrett and Max Crosby should be on that list so we don't pick until 61, realistically. Now we'll get since that's out of the bag, realistically, if that does not happen, I am looking at a large defensive tackle in the middle to start, fill up a cornerback or a safety in the second round, attack an edge or a wide receiver in the third, and then pivot in day 3 from what you did in day 1 and 2.
Yeah, so I guess I do see it a little bit differently. So the edge part, Alex, I know you and I have had that conversation, so I almost agree with you.
Yeah.
Almost. I could probably come up with a list of 5 edges I would draft in round 1. Even if they don't start for Buffalo, I think there's if a Michael Williams or a Shamar Stewart is there, you have to strongly consider that it's the pick, even if the player wouldn't start. With the safety, I tend to agree with Joe Marino on this. And I think it's closer to what Randall said. We're not bringing in a free agent safety. It's not that's not how Bean has typically handled the position. It's going to be a rookie that sits, and we have Rapp and Bishop this year. And to me, the actual problem at safety is Cam Lewis. Yeah, I mean this with all due respect, but Cam Lewis is a core. He was probably Buffalo's best special team. So he's going to be on the roster, but I really don't want to see him play safety. But
his coverage isn't great. Yeah, I know he's like a mega light Jahdae Barron because he can play in the slot. He's a versatile piece in that back, but just not, but an average versatile piece sort of thing. So
there's a take that'll age well. Cam Lewis, Jahdae Barron.
light.
Yeah, super light. Diet Coke.
That's why I'm comfortable with getting Jahdae Barron at 30 if he ends up staying that long.
See, I think I agree with you. I don't think he's fit for a safety either. I think he's truly a backup nickel player. He plays like 100%. One. I just don't think he's got the right length, or he doesn't have the right size really just to play safety generally. And he doesn't play like that. He's not like one of those ball hawking type of players that can take a beat on the ball and go get it. He's not that guy. He doesn't take great angles to the football either. I think he's good as a backup slot though, but what do you do with that? Right. Is that worthy of keeping him on your roster every single year? I mean, they seem to like him because he's great on special teams, but that's really all he provides.
There's a lot of special teamer double dipping in this draft. Right. That's great at special teams. Also fills a different role.
And then I do have one disagreement. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So the reason I was pointing out Lewis, I tend to agree with Alex. Lewis is better in the slot, but he is Buffalo's 4th safety.
Yeah.
Right. So that's actually the ultimate, let's say, roster building challenge because we know we want the rookie safety because we know Rapp is going to be on the way out. Right.
Right.
After the season. Right.
Yeah.
So I think we need a rookie there. And rookie safeties in this defense don't typically play. So there's that issue. But I do think we're drafting a safety within our first 7 picks.
Okay.
Preferably first 5. But I would bank it's going to be within the first 7. So and then to me, the only position where free agency changes the draft is corner.
Yeah.
Right? We could probably come up with a draft strategy and start talking about our handcuffs. And the only thing that really changes is whether or not we have a bona fide starting corner opposite Benford.
There's plenty of good cornerbacks out in the free agent market. If we're looking at that 7 to 9 million, Darius Slay, if he's taking $9 million, sort of something along those lines on a 1-year deal, or obviously a polished one like DJ Reed or something along those lines, then you're looking at an automatic day 3. We're just going to go our usual route, which I love, and get a 5th round, six round cornerback to develop and kind of figure that out, which it has proven to work. So I'm good with that. I think we should probably spend the most money on edge and cornerback in the free agent market if we can get the right ones and go through the draft for the rest. If we end up going wide receiver, let's say because Devontae Adams got released, if we get Devontae Adams, then you're probably looking at moving wide receiver to day 3 and then developing from there. Because in between 108 and 130, there's great wide receivers that you'll be able to that you can get. Ja'Cory Brooks from Louisville, Ricky White from UNLV, and stuff like that. So there's guys that can develop. It's just not day 1 starting.
And this is why I wanted the handicap, because to me, like wide receiver, this is a great example. Like I think in round 1, I think there's only one wide receiver I would consider, and that's Golden.
Luther?
Really?
I would consider Luther.
Okay.
I have a couple.
Burden,
Emeka, I'd take Emeka too.
But you see, I don't think Ibuka gives us. It's not okay. I think Ibuka deserves to be in a round 1 conversation.
Right.
This roster needs a downfield separator.
I agree.
I don't think that's Ibuka.
You would have to double dip. It'd almost be like Emeka was available, so it's a BPA at that spot. Let's say a bunch of them are already taken, and Emeka is that clear running, and you take them. Then I would want a round 4 wide receiver picked and double dipped in there. Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
Would you
think that Ibuka and Shakir are duplicates?
No.
Why not?
I think Emeka is a much better route runner. First of all, I think he wins a lot more down the field, not down the field like you're thinking. Like he's not going to go and run 9 routes, right? But
he runs past the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, he gets. Yeah. Right. He's not catching 3 out of his 5 targets aren't screen passes on a bubble on a orbit motion, right?
So let me rephrase my question.
Okay, there you go.
Do Ibuka and Shakir play the same position even though they don't play it the same way?
No, I'd run him at Z.
Yeah,
I think Shakir's a slot only.
Yeah,
I mean, I know he pops outside sometimes, but that's not for me. He's not he does his best spot is still the slot
for sure. And then you kind of use him in the Z would work, but then that's why I would take like Luther Burden first to Emeka if both are available. Luther Burden would fall into that Z type role a little bit quicker, so that's what I would choose between those. So I think me and Alex are on the same pages. There's a couple that we would.
See, I think Burden is
Golden. If you had to choose between Burden and Golden, Alex, who do you go after?
I'd take Golden for sure. And then Burden, the funny thing is I think Burden has more potential to be a downfield threat, but he plays a lot more like Shakir in college, right? He does a lot of like the gadget stuff and like the short stuff. And then, all of a sudden he'll pop one and get a little bit down the field. And I think he's got more athleticism to be able to do that than I worry that Ibuka probably doesn't have the athleticism that we're talking about because he didn't test. That's a red flag to me of like, is he really going to be the high level athlete that we see? But he's such a refined player. I think he's going to be a guy that Buffalo likes, also.
For sure. I mean, basically with his blocking ability, he would kind of take over a Matt Collins role in the slot sort of thing, help with blocking and things along those lines, and develop into that role. And he can still go outside. I mean, he runs a seam route well. I mean, granted, Egbuka has gone up against the seam route when you have Jeremiah Smith or Marvin Harrison Jr. on the outside drawing attention, but I'm sure that he can get it done. Oh, Sam T's watching. What's up?
Yeah, so Sam, it's good to see you. So Sam, we're handcuffing the draft. So if Buffalo can't get Golden or Burden on day 1, the only day 2 wide receivers I'm thinking that could be that downfield guy would be Ty Felton. And if you don't get Ty Felton, you're waiting until day 3. But are there guys that you like on day 2 that could be a lighter version of Golden to give us a downfield separator?
Yeah. You want to go first?
Alec Manor, I think, would fit with Stanford. I mean, he's not the speedy burst, but he's the tall contested catch, and he has a better route running than Keon Coleman. So putting those two on the outside, it's kind of like it kind of work how Amari and Keon work, but you're getting Aomanor, who is a massively athletic young kid that will draw that attention as well.
See, I thought the same thing. He ran really well this week, right? He ran like 4.44. I thought that was really good for him. But on tape, I mean, he doesn't separate, right? He really is a contested catch guy. He gets down the field and he catches contested catches. And he's a good route runner, don't get me wrong. But there is some part of his game that I'm like, is it redundant a little bit with Keon? I think he's a more refined player than Keon is, but he's still providing kind of the similar thing of like, we really want guys to go downfield and like actually, like Ty Felton to me, even though they don't use him that way in Maryland very often, right? They run him in a lot of like funky stuff. Like he doesn't actually get a lot of like go ball looks or post patterns or anything, but Ty Felton is clearly has the athleticism to do it, right? And he's a great route runner.
For sure.
Jalen Royals is another one I wouldn't mind taking a stab on. I think he can get down the field some.
There you go.
And Trey Harris can get down the field. He's not fast, right? But he's not, I wouldn't call him slow for his size, but he does have that vertical game and he does get down there. I think he creates separation for what he is. I actually thought he would run faster because he on tape to me he looks faster than that. And I have a couple other guys I like Isaiah Bond too and Torrey Horton. I'd take Torrey Horton round 3.
Torrey Horton round 3 would be good if we did a trade back. Love Torrey Horton's game. Quick, speedy, twitchy. Big fan of him. Isaiah Bond, I don't know. He seems too much of a project. It is a risk. If we're going to take somebody in like Isaiah Bond, and then we're still developing Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid. Kyle Washington had a great senior ball. He looked really good. I agree with that as well. So I think it'd be hard to bring somebody like Isaiah Bond that's a full project when we're still working with Kincaid that was injured and then Keon in that second role. It's a lot of development in one room.
I say Kyle Williams too, like he just brought up. I love Kyle Williams. I think he's a third round. You have a third round value on him, but his size, just like his length and his size, he's like right under the threshold and he's not like an elite athlete. So I think for me, Isaiah Bond, I know he's got some risks, right? But I do think, he had the fastest the fastest miles per hour 40 time at the combine, even though he ran a 4.39, right? But the speed's evident on tape. He's the type of player we want. But Kyle Williams, I actually like better as a player. I just wonder if he'd be able to get down the field like we want to with his size. Like he's not the same kind of athlete, you know what I mean? But I like both the players. I like Kyle Williams probably better than I do Isaiah Bond, actually.
Same. And I'm not sure if like in a trade back, is that what we're working with in round 3 sort of thing? Like, do we want to go that route? I'd almost rather, if we were to do a trade back, let's say we give up 56 and we get a third rounder and something else or a future pick. I would rather do a wide receiver at 61 instead of avoiding the third rounders that are a greater risk. If we have Jalen Royals in the second round, I think there's a large gap of Jalen Royals in the second round to the Washington State
Kyle Williams.
Williams, yeah. So then rather just jump the gun and get him in the second round to know that we have a higher floor and a less developmental guy than just wait until the third round for it. I think
so. Yeah, so I think the league is going to be higher on Isaiah Bond than the internet is.
Yeah.
Right? Just because there's some definitive explosive traits there.
Yep.
For sure.
And I don't see Bond getting past pick 64.
I don't either. I think he's a second round pick just because of what he provides, like with his upside.
And it's still a project. Like somebody showed a list of wide receivers drafted in round 2. And I don't know, like there was about 60 wide receivers in the list. It was actually a pretty long list. And I think like 4 of them, maybe 6 of them were like legit NFL players. So like if I don't know if the hit rate is really that low on second round wide receivers. But if it's that low, like if I had to choose between Isaiah Bond round 2 or Dante Thornton somewhere on day 3, I think the amount of work you have to put into both players is the same.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But
it's not significantly more.
It's not significantly more. Yeah. Thornton's just, I think his routes are, he's not as refined as, I think Bond can run routes. You know what I mean? I just think he has other problems, you know?
That's
But yeah,
exactly
I
what it
agree
is.
with you. I think you can see because Thornton's probably faster. He's more explosive than Bond, which is crazy.
It's crazy. I know. But then you
At
can
his
get
size.
into all the tall, fast guys. Jaden Higgins,
Yeah.
Daquan Felton ran pretty well. I mean, there's so many tall, fast guys.
See,
It's like wide receivers and the
Yeah.
running backs throughout this draft is almost just particular to team. What
Yeah.
teams you're looking at and what fits in their wide receiver room and scheme go. So I couldn't even guess who's going to go where because it's such a depth grab bag of running backs and wide receivers.
yeah.
Yeah,
we
what
could
do you
have-
think of Badger on day 3
I
for
love
a
that.
downfield separator?
I mean, right.
Yeah.
If we're going to hang on to 6 wide receivers, round 6 on Elijah Badger and use him as a specialty guy of just use his skills for what they are. Yeah,
And he's an
Perfect.
underrated route runner too. Badger is.
yeah.
He's a really actually he's probably going on under the. I think he might rise as we get closer to the draft, as people start to notice different things. They go back into the film and they go, okay, well, let me go look at this guy again after the combine or whatever, and they see the athleticism and they go, well, you know what? Maybe I should go back and look at this. I think Badger's one of those dudes that could rise into day 2, late day 2.
So
Yeah.
do we want to?
I think he stays in day 3.
He might.
Do we want
Yeah.
to flip to
Yeah.
defensive tackles?
Let's hit it.
Let's go.
Okay, so defensive tackles round 1. I'm thinking it's Grant, Harmon, and then maybe Alfred Collins. And
What
are
about
those-
Tyleek?
And then I'm about to say like Tyleek Williams. But like part of what I'm thinking is that if Collins and Williams are there at 30, you trade back. If both of them are there, do we value one significantly more than the other?
I don't think Buffalo does realistically. I think that Buffalo scouted Ohio State like crazy, scouted Texas like crazy. So as the Buffalo organization, I don't think they do. So I think you are in that mix, kind of like when we were sitting at 28 and we were just like, okay, well, we'll trade back. There's like 2 or 3 guys that we like and then keep going back until you get your spot sort of thing. So I could definitely see that happen. I'd like to throw in Darius Alexander. I know the Bills haven't scouted him well, but he is a first rounder and he is a force on that defensive line. I don't think Buffalo likes him, but I personally do on an individual standpoint.
What about size? Because I've cornered my defensive tackles strictly on if they can play one tech. Darius Alexander doesn't have.
No.
He's not very big, right? He's like a 3 tech, right?
No,
Yeah,
actually, I thought
he-
he was bigger.
He's a little bit bigger. He's a little bit bigger, but he plays on that to lead a line through 0 tech to 5 tech. He comes through there. He has clips once in a while of Chris Jones-esque sort of thing, the way he plays and with the power, the lower body power plus the upper body power and that bull rush coming through on guards. A little reminiscent of Chris Jones and the way he plays, like in the light version. So, but I think with his Senior Bowl and the way that he looked and everything along those lines, he got himself into the first round and he's worthy.
He's 6'4", 305 is what he weighed in at. Do you think that's big enough though? Like, I mean, I feel like we need something very specific to play one tech. I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. Alexander's a great player.
So
I wouldn't mind him either.
25. I don't think he goes in the top 50.
You don't
He's
think
25 years old? Yeah.
I believe, and feel free, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong. Sam Teets, I have Darius Alexander of Toledo at 25 years old. Do I have that correct? Because I think, again, the internet draft world, they're loving Alexander. They love what he did at the Senior Bowl, etc. Right? He's doing it. He's doing everything right. But the draft community values players that are 22 years old.
I mean, he's a great athlete.
25-year-old, like I think Alexander's actually going to fall to day 3.
I disagree. No, he's a first round. He's a top 35 for me.
So I'm just looking at some of his testing. I mean, he's 6'4", 305. I think personally he's too small to play what we want, but he's 34-inch arms. He had 28 bench reps, 4.9, 540. He had really good 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle drill. Like he's got first round type of ability, but you're right. If he's 25 years old, I do wonder if other teams view him the same way, if they think he needs work, especially.
Yep. So if we can't get, I'm going to call it the big 4. So to me, the big 4 are Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, Tyleek Williams, Alfred Collins.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the big 4 1-techs. Should anybody else be added to the same conversation as a 1-tech?
In the
No.
first 64, I don't think so personally.
Right. So
64 or 30? Because I have a couple guys that I think can be entertain the 64.
Who would you entertain at 64, Alex?
This may not be popular. I think Jordan Phillips should be entertained there. I don't love Deion Walker because of he is really tall.
I would take Deion Walker in this second.
Yeah, but he's kind of like a Jordan Phillips, like our Jordan Phillips person. Like he's an athlete, right? He's huge, but he's so tall. I just wonder if he can hold up with his leverage. And then this one is probably somebody people aren't thinking about. CJ West from Indiana. He's kind of short. He's like 6'1", but he's like 315. He's pretty stout. He lacks length, but he's a really good athlete. Like, I'm not saying round 2, but maybe like round 3, like day 2 kind of guy early on in it. I think he'd fit the kind of role, like maybe like a Puna Ford kind of guy. But yeah, those are the 3 that I had. I actually prepped for the round 2 as also like, I think that those 3 are ones that stood out to me. But I mean, if I had to pick between those 3, I'd take Jordan Phillips still. I think that I like his balance of everything better than the other 2 guys. I have more faith in him playing 1-tech.
Okay, so if I were to – so, Alex, first of all, it's really cool to know that you're that high on some of those players, because what I was going to say is that if you don't get Collins, Williams, Harmon, Grant,
okay,
right, wherever you choose to value them in, let's say, the first 40 picks, if you wait until the top of the 4th round, right? Because Buffalo has that 4th rounder that's
early,
sitting right at the top of the round.
Yeah.
Right. So is Phillips there? Is West there? Is Caldwell there? And I could come up with probably a list of 6 guys. And while they won't all be there, I don't think all 6 will be gone either.
I agree.
Oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
That's where my head was at too, because I had my keys for the early 4th round were Jamari Caldwell, Jordan Phillips, CJ West, maybe Joshua Farmer as a 3-tech sort of thing. But guys like those, I had those as an early 4th. So we're on the same page with people that we like, and then it just gets confusing where they drop.
Right. And the depth, I think, might do what you're saying, right? Like it might drive some of those guys down where like the first run on all these D tackles goes. And then they start. Then a run happens on what happens in late round 2, early round 3. Offensive guards start to fly off the board. You have some of your later tackles. You get a lot of these like tight ends and things like that. Backup quarterbacks. They'll start to run and shove some of these guys down. And then people like us might be like, well, we missed on the top 6 guys, so might as well just wait because all the rest of the guys are. It's pick your flavor,
Right. And I don't necessarily know that there's like. Do we have Phillips and West in a different tier than Caldwell?
Not
like
that much.
How big is that difference?
It's a very narrow gap.
For sure. I mean, Jamari Caldwell is great. He's a true, nose tackle. Nazir Stackhouse is really good too.
Say the same thing. Yep.
That's a great day 3 as well. So, I mean, I really do like, Jamari Caldwell could not get out of day 2 because of exactly his short area burst. I mean, he is a freight train that can move laterally and twitch really well, which is insane for a true nose tackle. So there is a good chance that a lot of teams like Jamari Caldwell, and he's gone by the end of round 3 or even mid round 3.
And these guys are probably closer, like Phillips and Walker and West, or maybe not Walker, because some people might value him higher, but I think they're closer to Stackhouse and maybe like Yaya Black or some of these guys. Like in the later, like day 3 guys, then they are close to like Derek Harmon,
for sure.
Those kind of guys. So I did want to ask you all a question, how you felt about this with Kenneth Grant. I was unimpressed. I mean, he's a big guy he has kind of short arms for how big he is. And he only put up like 22 reps on the bench. I feel like that's kind of at his size, that's kind of not that great.
I don't know. That guy's an athlete. And
I know, but I'm just saying with the strength issue, to me, that bothered me some because I know 22 reps on the bench. I mean, there are wide receivers that can do that sometimes, and his size,
I'd be curious because he was down to 3. was he down to 329 or 331 at the combine?
Yeah, it was something like
when
that.
he was at
yeah.
playing at 340. So I don't know about the strength. I'm not concerned about the reps at the combine at all.
Okay.
I think he took on a lot of double teams in honor of Mason Graham and stuff like that. So, and he was still workhorse, fast, quick, developed still pressures going through the A gap. So he's still my number one target for round one.
What if Graham drops because of his, like, he was supposed to be bigger, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I love Mason Graham too. Either or, those two were kind of a powerhouse. Yeah. I mean, if you look at it, like, even when you look at Jamari Caldwell, like, Jamari Caldwell didn't get a lot of the buzz for the beginning of the season because Derek Harmon came in as a freight train grabbing pressures at his side sort of thing. So the duality of the defensive line, when you look at who they're paired with, I believe should get a good amount of credit for it, for helping out that Derek Harmon get into the first round. So I think anybody, when we're looking at people like Ed Oliver, that we need Ed Oliver to shine, Jamari Caldwell and Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham do that for Ed Oliver. So I just think it's a no-brainer in the trickle-down effect.
I mean, I like him. I would take Kenneth Grant over all those guys. I thought it was interesting to talk about.
Yes. And Deion Walker, I think, is athletic enough to get coached out of his pad level. I think he can get low, and he did drop some weight. So I think Deion Walker is a good one in the second round as well.
So like, I like Will's take. So that's accidental Zen for anybody that's following on X. But his theory on Walker was to move him to defensive end.
He said he plays like a defensive end, which he does. I disagree. I think he needs to be coached out of that. I think he needs to be in the middle. He's huge.
I just don't think he can do it with it. I don't think his body type can hold up.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a detriment out there. And his quickness and his athleticism that seems really good right now against centers and guards would then be exposed against tackles. I don't think he's big enough to really, like, if he goes against a guy like Deion Dawkins, I'm not saying that's what he would go against, but I think you get manhandled and easily taken out of the play.
Do it.
But I will say, getting down at that height, he's like 6'7" plus, right? Like that causes back. Like, you see tall NBA players, even, right? The really tall, long torso guys, they have back problems. Like that concerns me for like a future injury risk of like, will your back continue to hold up over time? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
So do we want to flip the discussion to corners, or do we have any more defensive tackles to talk?
You want to talk about Eric Gregory?
I mean, yeah, Eric Gregory's a 6th or 7th rounder for me. I was going to talk about.
He's on my list for day 3ers.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Tyrod.
Go for it. You got a guy you want to shout out? Go for it.
About Mr. Razorback Eric Gregory. I'm going to.
No, that's why I brought him up, because you're a Razorback, right?
Yeah, go for it. Sell me on him.
I'm not. I mean, you're right. He's like a 6th, 7th round pick. He's like a two-gapper guy. He's not going to be somebody who can provide any real pass rush or anything like that. But
I
drafted him late.
Brandon Beane hasn't drafted a defensive lineman past round 5. And if you take Javon Solomon off the list, he hasn't drafted one past round 3.
Interesting. Yeah. See, this is why we were talking about edge earlier. Javon Solomon, like, we have a bunch of guys, like, we've got Epinesa, we've got Russo, we've got, well, who knows? Maybe Russo stays, maybe he doesn't. Solomon now. We have a lot of guys that do a lot of the same things, you know?
Right.
And I don't know, like, taking a late round to end, I feel like it's kind of a waste. It's like, why do we do it?
I think it could be.
I think it's different this year, though. I think it's
a little different. Yeah, the depth is better, but like, we're still talking about a lot of, like, I think I said this on X. I think we're talking about a lot of like Jason Owe kind of guys. Like, are they actually going to produce? They haven't really. I mean, there's a few guys that produce, like Green and the kid from Boston College and guys like that. But for me, like, there's a lot of guys that are like 5-4 sack guys, and are like, he can do it. We know he's an athlete, you know, like, is he actually going to do it? You know, like, that's what I feel like about a lot of the high end guys, like the Texas A&M guys blaming it on the system. I don't know. Does that?
So
I think there's some truth to that. But then if you look at like Donovan, Big Easy, like, his length is incredible. Like, his production matches his length. Like, he is that prototypical size. I mean, he's a little lighter in pounds, but like, his arm length is great. His production shows in college that I believe with his length transfers to the NFL, and he's skyrocketing upward. So that's even like what we talk about round 1. He's also a trade back. If you're looking at, like, let's say you have Harmon. Let's say you have like Harmon, Collins, and then you have Princely Uman-Malin and Donovan E. And you decide to trade back because you have those 4, you could almost look and then go for a BPA with those 4.
Who would you take out of those 4?
I would take.
Have to be Harmon. It's the defensive
it would be Harmon.
tackle.
Oh, Harmon. I didn't know you said Harmon.
Okay, wait.
Sorry.
Yeah, but then let's get the defensive tackles out of the way, and then it's pick 35 and Princely and Easy's there. I would take Princely. I like his power.
Really? I'd take Easy. I'd take Easy.
I think they're edge like 7 or 8, like back to back for me. But I like Princely's power. I think he comes on the edge. I think his character concerns are nothing. His character concerns are nothing, and he is a different guy that would have our room. Donovan, Big Easy would be a little bit like Rousseau-esque the way he can set the edge. But okay, sorry, go ahead.
Hold on. Let's reset the conversation. Which edges would you take at 30? Which edges are worth pick 30? So you like Donovan Izaraku? We like Princely Uman-Malin?
James Pierce, because he seems to be falling. I think the coaching aspect.
Pierce fit in Buffalo just because he falls? Like, I don't know that we've ever had an edge. Like, he's like Von Miller, light.
Yeah, but I mean,
edges like that, right?
Edges are getting lighter, and his back-to-back 60 pressure seasons is there.
For Pierce?
He shows that he can get to the quarterback multiple times. He does it in different ways. I just think you take that talent and then you just kind of figure it out. Personally.
I think he's the same problem as Dalton Kincaid. I think he gained weight for the combine. I don't think he actually plays at 245. I think he plays at like 230. He looks like a safety when he plays. I don't know. Maybe it's the number.
Yeah.
27 or whatever. But he looks light. He looks like he's like a hamburger. I could eat a hamburger and be like at his level. Like, that's how heavy he looks to me. And I wonder if, like, I get 245 if he can play that way. And he ran really well, by the way. So it's not like he can't play there. But I wonder if he continues to stay there. You know what I mean? That's my only fear with him is that. And I guess there's some character stuff that came up. But
it's like based on coaching.
Do you like either Texas A&M? Do you like Shamar Stewart and or Nick Scourton at 30?
Scourton, I think, is a better player. He's just not as good of an athlete.
Yeah, there's like Scourton had questions on like taking plays off and stuff, and I've heard around like when he's taking plays off, he's trying to conserve his body, which I think is fair. I think there's a lot of human elements that a lot of people in looking at draft doesn't put in perspective as like, yeah, you gotta save your body. You are a large gentleman on that line, and he wants to make sure that he gets NFL contract. So I don't take that out of him, sort of thing. I would take Nick Scourton over Shamar, but if both are available,
Shamar's such a good athlete, right?
It has to be Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart is a Brandon Bean pick if I've ever seen one.
Are you sure without the production, though?
I don't know that it's about production. It's going to be the traits. Think of the Greg.
That's true. That's true. Russo had great production.
Yeah,
he did. You're right.
Yeah, he had 16 sacks in his final year.
Senior year. Most of them like 8 of them from like the 3-tech spot, but whatever. We never play him there either. It's crazy.
He drops back into coverage more than he goes through 3-tech.
Yeah. And now they're like, why can't he win on the edge? Yeah. Well, I'll tell you why I can't win on the edge, because he never did it before. He's doing better than he used to. He's a couple good like arm over moves, get to go back inside, things like that, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So by the way, real quick, for like day 3 tackles, Ty Robinson was somebody that I really like to see at the combine, and going back to his tape and looking at him, those thunder thighs like that lower body power that he has is insane. You know, he comes from a lot of the nose tackle being next to, I don't want to say his name right, Hutmaker, right? Is his running mate next to him? Hutmaker is his running mate next to him, and they kind of are almost like identical to themselves, but he ran a 4.83, which was 15th fastest in defensive tackles in the last 10 years. Had a good shuttle, had a good broad jump. He understands everything. He kind of just has a play. He understands his assignment and just executes it well. Can diagnose screen passes with his 4.83 speed and stuff like that. So he's a good developmental day 3 if you in like the 4th or 5th round that you could get a lot out of him for sure.
You're talking about Nash Hutmacher from Nebraska.
Is it Hutmacher?
I don't know. It's Hutmacher, Hutmacher.
Yeah. when you watch the Nebraska D-line, they almost look identical. It's hysterical. Just a bunch of 6'5" white guys attacking the
that's what to
jabs.
say. Are you sure in Nebraska?
Yeah. But I love them. I love them both. I'll take them both.
Yeah, good player. They're both good players.
So going back then, so obviously we're skipping around from position to position.
Yeah, let's go back.
If we went back to edges for round one, if Michael Williams is there, would you take him in round one?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I mean,
he's got consistent production from high school. Same with like the Malachi Stark sort of thing. But he's got consistent production. It's not great, but then his traits, his athleticism at 30. It's like that at 30. We always talk. Brandon Bean always kind of talks about at the end of the round one. There's so many people gone. When Michael's get talked about top 15, and if he drops to 30, you gotta take it and figure it out.
Yeah, and like we did a 2-round mock yesterday, and I was shocked that he fell to 30.
Did he?
Like all the defensive tackles were gone. Like I had to choose between like Michael Williams and Alfred Collins. That was my. Because at that point, Golden was already off the board, as was Harmon Grant. So that was an interesting first round decision I had to make.
That is.
That I hadn't, I don't know, with all the different simulators and whatever that we do, right? That was, I had not seen Michael Williams drop to 30. So that I was like, okay, there's not enough conversation about would he fit in Buffalo. Right.
I think.
Yeah. With his length and his run stopping ability coming from the setting the edge like that, that's something that McDermott loves and things along those lines. But then you just hope to get the pressures out of it, and that's like almost like just spinning wheels with Buffalo all the time, right?
This is why. Yeah, this is why, man. I'm telling you, this is why we had this conversation earlier. This is why I have really big concerns about taking an edge player in round one at pick 30. I like Michael Williams. You could build him in a lab. He looks great. He's 34-inch arms. He's 6'5" and like 260. Yeah. But he doesn't have much. His production's very limited. His NFL comp on NFL.com is Greg Rousseau. I'm looking at it right now. Do we want another Greg Rousseau, or do we want to go? We're just gonna have to go get a guy in free agency. At this point, I'm like, give me whatever defensive tackle or wide receivers there. But I will say, He looks the part. I think his pass rush plan is kind of weak. I think he just comes at every time. He goes speed to power, but he runs right into the tackle, and he just kind of sheds or does. He doesn't have much. He doesn't do much.
His length he does well with the sheds, and that's kind of where he goes to for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know.
What about wait? So when you were talking about no edge, were you referencing round one, or are you like no edge? Top 64.
So here's the thing is my dynamic with edge. We need a certain type of player. We have AJ, Rousseau, Smoot's probably gone, right?
Right.
We got we've got Solomon, and then we've got who else do we have? That's pretty much all that it is right now, right? So maybe edge late might be okay, or even round 2 would be okay. I think if you get Garrett. Well, we probably won't have a first-round pick if we get Garrett. So,
which we are more than okay with. I'll take away 56.
I don't think Garrett's coming
before the draft. He's not moving before the draft because Cleveland can't afford to move him until June 1st.
And I think that the most likely scenario for us is to go out and get Josh Sweat, not get him.
Yeah. I think Max Crosby's going to open up, and I think Max Crosby's more
he's dead now. Okay.
But
I wish.
Let's focus on the draft.
All right, focus.
Oh yeah, okay. Right. So day 2, because I know it's a specific, but I think there's decent day 2 pass rushers that we can talk about, and I did kind of a little bit on the
so let me run through pick 30 though a little bit. So pick 30, would you take Braden Swinson?
No. I got him.
Are you guys high on Swinson or not?
Not
at 30.
Not at 30.
Okay, so there's some that I have a lot of respect for. That Swinson's a first-round grade, top 20.
He's a dog. Don't get me wrong. I have him as our perfect fit at 56. I think that maybe the NFL is higher than him, but I mean I think he's an absolute dog. I love him to death. He's got a 19% pass rush win rate, 9 sacks, hit the quarterback 17 times. Had great games against elite players. South Carolina, Ole Miss had 7-8 pressures, 10 pressures against Oklahoma, sort of thing. He sets the edge well. He sets the edge really well for run support. Mm-hmm. But then he's also powerful. He's 6'3.5", so his bull rush is low man wins, and he pushes the tackles back on it. But then he has different repertoires on it. He can move laterally. He is by far, if he lasts the 56, my number one pick for Buffalo.
Okay. And then a couple of others for pick 30. Kyle Kennard. I think I already know what the answer is, but I'm going to ask anyway.
No.
He's my number 2 at 56.
Yeah. Okay. I have him actually as a round 2 grade right here looking at.
Yeah.
Right. And then how about either Ohio State edge, JTT or Sawyer at 30?
Not at 30.
No.
Right. So we're saying that we might like the player, but we don't really want him at 30.
No.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So then the next question would be edge in round 2. And I think the edge list in round 2, to your point, I think that list is pretty long because that's where you guys said that you liked Swinson. That's like where you said you like Kennard, right?
Yep.
So what about Fabian Jones, the other LSU edge?
Fabian Jones? Yeah. He's a little bit lower on the list for me, but he would fit in that 61 pick, yeah.
Yeah, and how about you, Alex? How do you see Jones as a round 2 guy, or you want him a little bit later?
I'd take him later. I did not have him on my round 2 targets that I have here. I do have on athleticism alone, I have Landon Jackson because I think he's right on the border of round 2, round 3 guy. And I actually have Princely too. I have a lower grade on Princely than Randall does. So I have Princely down lower where we could be a possibility late round 2, but that may not be an opportunity either. He probably will go higher than what I have.
Yeah,
and Jack Sawyer, I have him too.
Yeah, Jack Sawyer is a good one. I think Landon Jackson, Ohio State was scouted by us the most, so we have to assume. But I think Landon Jackson goes higher because of the combine and his attributes.
Just the attributes. Sawyer is the opposite. Sawyer has really short arms and he's just like a technical player, you know.
For sure. But I do love Kyle Kennard too. When we're discussing Kyle Kennard, because South Carolina was the second most scouted by Buffalo. 6'4", 254. He's got long arms, 34-inch arms, prototypical. Yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
I'll say if he goes, I will change my opinion on it. If he drops to 56, I would be like Kyle Kennard would be number 1 on my board kind of guy. That's how I feel about it. I think he's got was he like a 6-year player or something? He's been in the league. He's been in college for a while. But he was SEC Defensive Player of the Year, right? He had great measurables, good athlete. I don't remember how many sacks he had, but I know it was double-digit sacks last year. I think it was the first in his career, though, to do that. But
10 sacks, 6 QB hits, 12.5 pass rush win rate.
Yeah, good stuff.
16 tackles for loss.
Yeah, he could be one of those guys that you get and go, oh, okay, we know why. Like we slept on him like TJ Watt. We know why he's great in the league now. After seeing him produce and get him late in second round, he could be somebody slips through the cracks.
For sure. If we trade back, Jared Ivey would be a good one too. I mean,
I have him on my board too.
Yeah. That'd be a good 3rd rounder. I agree. He's got good explosive. He did well in Ole Miss. He was a fun watch. Kind of fell off a little bit the second half of the year, but I think who he is more about the beginning of the year.
I have him as a handcuff for like a round 4-ish guy.
Yeah.
And then Antoine Powell Ryland from Virginia Tech as well. I think he's like a 5-ish round kind of player that had like 16 sacks last year as well.
For sure. Yeah.
And that was kind of the whole point, right? So we said, okay, who do we like at pick what we have like 56 and 60, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't pick him at 60, we're not picking again until like 105 or 1
or something. Yeah.
108.
Right?
Yeah.
So I would agree. Ivy's in that list at 110. I like Powell Ryland from Virginia Tech.
Yep.
Yeah.
My favorite is from Alabama. That's Q Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
He's awesome.
I would not be disappointed if that was one of the round 2 picks.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's expensive.
Yeah.
But Buffalo doesn't get to draft traits like that very much.
Right.
If Q Robinson was healthy, he's going in the top 20.
What was his injury? I missed that.
What was his injury? Do you know?
I don't remember. Sam Teets, do you know Quandarius Robinson's injury from Alabama. I do know at minimum you're getting a special teams ace because he played teams his first 3 years at Alabama.
Yeah.
So
elbow.
His elbow?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't like not depending on season ending.
Yeah, he is 6'4". He's 6'4", 243, 33.5-inch arms. So he's meeting the thresholds there.
He's good. I mean, he would basically be a third round like Shamar Stewart light. Bet on the traits, bet on it, and then hope the production comes in the NFL, which is, I guess, a little bit more comfortable than Shamar Stewart at 12. I wouldn't say 30, but it could be like a safer bet than Shamar Stewart at 12.
Well, and whether or not you consider it a safer bet, you're able to spend a premium asset on a different position,
right?
And then make a bet. And the great thing about Buffalo's edge room is that we already have 3 edges under contract for next year.
Yeah.
Right. Like these guys, any edge that we draft is what, 10, maybe 25% of the snaps top.
Fair.
Yeah. Top,
So
unless we just somebody slips that, is just too good to not play. But
so what other day 3 edges do you guys like?
Well, I did a little bit of this on scouting, by the way, as well. So, like day 3, Fadil Diggs from Syracuse. I like him. He was plays a little bit like a linebacker, comes off the line of scrimmage a little bit and kind of attacks. But he had a 15.2% pass rush rate at Syracuse. He's got a similar size to AJ Epineza, what he is right now, 6'4", 257, 33 and 3/8 inch arms. He had a 4.57 40, so he's super quick, super explosive on it, had a good 10-yard. He's crazy in tackle for losses, 14. Everybody that Buffalo has scouted and we are eyeing at, there's a trend of tackle for losses and total tackles per game. And it's very, very fluent on it. He has 14 tackles for loss. He plays from 3 tech all the way to 9. He can play everything, can come off on the linebacker. He's got a repertoire of explosive moves. I think day 4, I think Buffalo is looking at him in the day 3 area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like both Michigan edges in round 4 as well.
Do you think Josiah Stewart's out of the top 100?
Well, I think there's some I guess concerns about, isn't he kind of short?
Yeah, his size isn't fantastic, I believe. But he had good production, right?
So the fact that he's not prototypical size is a flag for me to wait until day 3.
He's like Solomon size.
I wouldn't love him in round 3, but I would like him a lot better in round 4. It's just about risk reward based upon the size profile.
Yeah,
for sure. The other one I was looking at was Femi Oladejo, which I'm not sure where the consensus has him. I put him in there. I think he might actually go in the 3rd, but if he stayed to the 4th, he would be somebody that would be fantastic. He's a little bit shorter, but still 259. Got long arms, got a good sized hand. He was a linebacker turned edge, so his closing speed is ridiculous. Great in the run game with 14 tackles for loss, with a missed tackle rate of less than 10%. Can close down easy. Has a great cross chop. 7 sacks, 7 QB hits. I think he has good games against Iowa and USC. I think if he lasts at 108, I think it's a no-brainer there.
And to Dana's question about Solomon. Okay,
I want
you don't draft somebody and expect them to not play year 2.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing about Solomon is that Buffalo had not drafted a player like that before.
Right.
His size profile didn't fit with what we already had on the roster.
Yep.
Unless you compared him to Von Miller, but comparing everybody to Von is a bad idea.
He had insane production, right? Troy, right?
Yeah, Troy. Well, the thing is, the insane in production, because he's actually not like a superior athlete or anything either. You just, you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't like this, like he ran a 4.5 at the combine and he's super bursty. Like he just got it done, you know?
Right. No, for sure. And Sam, I said that as in like hopes of 108. I don't think that he'd last to 108. I think he's closer to round 2 than round 4 for sure. But I just put him down because I wanted to talk to him as well because he's a beast. But yeah, Javon Solomon, he kind of got it done. You'd think that he would step into a role to give him a shot sort of thing for sure. So I guess it's when we're looking at the training camp, like where he is and what reps he's taking and who's he taking them with, stuff like that, will kind of declare what he's going to do.
So this is actually an interesting question in the chat for Femi Oludajo. He's from UCLA, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So I remember when we covered him with scouting reports because I had him in with the linebackers.
Yeah.
And Josh very quickly corrected me.
Yeah. All right. Definite edge.
Right.
For me.
So I think the issue is he's an edge, but he might be a liability on running down. He's not as big of a liability as David Walker.
Yeah. I mean, I saw good run defense. He has good gap integrity. He has 57 tackles, 30 solo, and 14 tackles for loss with under 10% missed tackle rate. I would say he could do it, and yeah, full-time edge.
Okay, thanks, Sam.
For Oladejo, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean he's
okay.
What were the other options?
Well, and you know, when I get a player list at the beginning of the draft cycle and somebody's in at a linebacker, you have to sort through because there's more than one type of linebacker. So, for example, like David Walker, he's the guy from Central Arkansas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And like he would be another edge rusher I would consider on day 3, but I don't take that risk on day 2.
Agreed.
Right. And I think he's going to go on day 2 based on how I see everybody having him graded. I'm expecting him to go on day 2, but for where the Bills roster is, I don't know that that's the right value until day 3.
Yeah. Would you consider either one of those guys at linebacker?
No, but when they were originally given to me on a player list, they were both labeled.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay, they're like 3'4", maybe. They're both like 260. So
right.
I think Jim's most hated thing about this draft cycle is the offensive line and what position they were going to be in for your website.
The offensive line.
You had to deal with, which I love. Accidental Zen and Greg, while we were doing those drafted teams in August, being like, this guy's going to play guard, this guy's going to play center.
Well, because all of the tackles have 32-inch arms and 33-inch arms. So like they all look like guards to me, you know.
Yeah, I know.
So
all the top ones anyway.
So it was funny, like with the offensive line, because Drew and Parker were doing an offensive line episode, and Drew wanted one player to be listed as a guard, and Parker wanted the same player listed as a tackle. And they were making their graphics on the simulator. So I'm like, okay, Parker, it's your turn. Make your graphic. Okay, I flipped the player's position. True. Go make it. Okay, so last position, and I think this is actually the toughest, and that's corner.
Yeah.
So my opinion is that if you don't come out of round 2 with a corner, and this goes for any team in the draft, unless you need a slot corner, I think nearly every legit boundary corner is going to go in the top 64 because there's just not that many of them.
Yeah, I could feel that. Where do you two have Jacob Parrish? Jim? So
he's a slot, right?
Yeah. Well, he can still play outside. He's quick. So he still plays outside, and he's a fast guy. So I think he can handle the boundary.
Okay, I might be thinking of a different. Are there 2 Jacobs at corner?
Is the Kansas State player?
Kansas State.
Yeah. That's what I'm sorting through. I'm going through the player list right now.
I just think he ran well at the combine from what I remember, right?
And I think a good vertical. I think he had a 40-inch vertical or 39.
Hold on, let me pull him up.
I mean, while you pull it up, he's got 5 interceptions.
37.5. It's good.
Yeah, that is good. He has 50 total tackles, 40 solo, 3 tackles for loss. Yeah. He stays super low when he's on the outside, super low and he's got fluid hips. So he's super quick, and he kind of sometimes overbites on go routes. That's one of his
Yeah.
flaws for me. Is he'll just read it as a go route, go past it,
So
stick outside the pipe. Yep. And then, but then he's got a great trail technique. He does that well in crossers and sail routes and things along those lines. So I think he's got it for that boundary. I just feel like some people have him in the top 64, but I have him in the late day 2 and kind of segment. Right. Sam, I'm not sure where you have him.
Yeah. So Sam Parrish is the player that Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino have been talking about like the last 2 or 3 episodes, right? Like, because there's a lot of corners that begin with the letter J, but I'm confident that it's Jacob Parrish.
Yeah, I don't see him as a slot, though.
He's right there in the teeter line, right? Like he's not
5'9". He's 5'9.5". That's the issue.
Yeah, like that's
191.
That's going to hurt him a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying he can't do it. Like, for instance, I think Jahdae Barron, I mean, for me, I mean, he just lacks a lot of length. I think he could probably play the outside too, but it's not like your ideal spot. There's a lot of guys like that in this draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the number of boundary corners that are injury-free is low.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So, like, for Buffalo, I'd be looking at Darian Porter. I'd be looking at Trey Amos.
I got him too.
I'd be looking at Noel Williams. I would be looking at Azare Thomas.
Got him.
Yeah.
On pick 30?
No.
Here's the issue, is that I could show you people that will say you take Amos round 1, you take Porter round 1, you take Azare Thomas round 1, and then we could turn around and those same people will say they're going to be there at the end of round 2. And like Sam was on a podcast where we had 4 cornerback big boards. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen because we had 4 people who I respect a lot, right? So Sam was on there with James Foster, with Newt and Owen, right? These are 4 guys that do a really good job. So they each had 15 corners on their board, but every single one of them had 4 corners that the other didn't even have on their board. Right, so that's like that. That's like they may agree on the top 64, but then whoever they had between 64 and 125 was different.
Yeah.
Right, Zy Alexander's on one list; he's not on 2 of the others. Mello Dotson is on one of the lists; he's not on 3 of the others. Kobe Bryant was on a list, but he wasn't on the others.
Yeah,
right.
So there's a group of corners there where that's going to be a very volatile ranking. Like it doesn't seem like there's not a lot of consensus there.
Right.
So I think like Azariah Thomas, Darian Porter, and Trey Amos, I have all those guys as a early round 2-ish kind of grade, but I would not have a problem with us at 30 if we're desperate, right? Like if we didn't go out and get a guy in free agency and that was like our number 1 need, I would not hate those picks, right? But they are probably more like a mid to like early round 2 grades. And then you have other guys like I like Zy Alexander. I think the Bills like Zy Alexander. I think he's kind of like their prototype. He's slow.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to say.
He plays a zone fit. Maxwell Hairston is the reverse of that. I think that he's a guy that I would really like in like mid to late round 2. Another guy I don't talk. I'm a Tech fan, so I do see these guys more often. But I like Dorian Strong from Virginia Tech. He didn't have as good a 2024 as he did 2023. I thought Dorian Strong has kind of eased to me like a late 2, early 3 grade as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. You can say where you have Maxwell. I have pending any rumors. I have Maxwell Hairston in 30 comfortably as well. I wouldn't be upset about 100%.
That.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be upset about that.
His tape is great. I do like Zy Alexander as well.
I like him as a player.
Yeah, he's slow though. Like his Alabama game was rough because Ryan Williams was just burning him.
Cooking him.
It was I counted. It was 4-1 where he beat him, sort of thing. But then he had a really good game against Ole Miss. He basically shut Trey Harris down to 0 yards after the catch. Very impressive, sort of thing like that. So and that's somebody that Buffalo could take in day 4 and develop, or day 3 and develop, sort of thing. So that's great. I think Noah Williams is definitely on Buffalo's radar because he was 5th most. Cal was 5th most scouted by Buffalo. And who else?
and he returns kicks. Like, so
Who else
a
is
couple
on it?
things to like look at with DBs. Like Billy Bowman has returned kicks.
Yeah.
Noel Williams has returned kicks. And I think Buffalo wants to bump Codrington off the roster.
Yeah, I think they made a mistake.
I wouldn't say they made a mistake. They had to get through week 1 without a kick return.
Right. That's
I
pretty
think they
much
should just let Hardy play. Just let Hardy play through some of the, the mental mistakes.
I don't want, something, Alex, with all due respect, if we're competing for the Super Bowl and you don't have confidence in your kick returner, you get rid of them and you bring in somebody that you have confidence in.
I agree, but they brought in like an unknown. I mean, they knew what he did in college, of course, but they brought an unknown to replace the guy they don't trust. And it was this preseason. I don't know.
It worked in special teams. That's the thing. The issue is that they revamped their starting 53, and he wasn't on the list as cornerback. They used Shakir because Shakir was an automatic starter. So they were like, okay, well, you got to catch.
But Hardy played good on defense.
I know
the preseason and in camp.
I know preseason.
Yes.
But yeah,
so
I know.
We
talked about that in the offside. Yeah.
So if you were to replace Codrington on the roster with a DB, are you looking to say that that's going to be an extra slot? Is that an extra boundary or is that an extra safety?
It's got to be safety or slot. I wouldn't do a boundary.
Free agency. I wouldn't do it. It's all dependent on free agency. That's a kicker. I think that we should look for a boundary guy in free agency.
Yeah. I think you brought up Billy Bowman, who's a good. I think he's a safety prospect, right?
Correct.
I think he'd be in the right spot to get another, like probably late round 2, maybe even a 3. I don't know.
Oh, I think
early round 4.
3. I think Bowman stays 3.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants,
well then perfect, because I love him. I love him as a player. I think he'd be a great 4th safety on our team.
Yeah.
Right. Now, do you guys have Bowman as a slot corner or a safety?
I have him as a safety.
Free safety,
okay. Yeah. Sam, question. Billy Bowman, do you have him as a slot or do you have him as a safety? That came up on another podcast.
Did somebody say slot?
Somebody said that he would actually be better off being a safety that you move to the slot. Don't call him a safety. Like you put him in a defense where he has a role where sometimes he's safety, sometimes he's slot.
Right.
Like kind of design. You want a defense where it's not rigid.
Yeah. I would.
I mean,
so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
so
he's kind of
safety. It is. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I listened. Right. I've got. I'm on podcast.
He's good at
about 40 people. I've got enough.
He has shorter arms than Khalil Shakir. If that tells you anything.
Yeah, 5'10". Yeah, I mean he's good as that commander in the back sort of thing, sitting just in open space and be able to diagnose where watching the QB and stuff. So I never even thought about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't either.
So who are some of your day 3 corners that you guys are thinking from a handicap? Like you miss a corner on day 1 and 2, and we need to find a boundary corner. Like, do you guys think Tommy Hill is day 2 or day 3 from Nebraska?
Day 3, and based on the injury, and then and his plays all right, but I don't think Buffalo's looking at him based on the injury. I think that he needs to come back. He at least needs to be ready in training camp and ready to go, and I don't think he is, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, and
I think go ahead.
So Tommy Hill, didn't he cover Travis Hunter, and he did it well?
I don't know.
Like Randall, I think I remember you and Bill talking about that in October and November.
He had a pick 6 that he just eyed Shedeur Sanders, and Shedeur Sanders should not have thrown that ball.
So it's on Shedeur.
Yeah, it was definitely.
It's not on Travis.
He was in the end. He was in the
not
end
surprising.
Zone. Like, he did a 5-step drop back into the end zone. Eyed a quick comeback to the outside, and Tommy Hill was just staring at Shedeur. As soon as he threw it, grabbed it, ran 5 yards for a touchdown sort of thing. He did have a good game, but
What do you think about
Denzel Burke? Is day 2 or day 3?
I was about to ask Denzel Burke. I have him day 3. He's got some mixed consensus.
He's got to play. He's got to play in the slot, right? He's way better in short than he is in deep.
Yes.
He gets burned outside. He should be a slot corner. He can't play outside.
He's a zone fit at best. He's a solid athlete, but
he is. His 2023
Jacob Parrish, which you brought up earlier, I think he'd be a great 4th round kind of grade,
Yes.
early 4th round. I had him. And then Kobe Bryant as well. I have like early 4 on him too.
Would you put Kobe Bryant on the boundary, Alex, or with that size, is he a slot for you? Because he's like 170, correct?
Yeah, I think well, let me look. But the thing with him, like, I think he's pretty good in run support.
Donald Fortune's a good one.
I'll see where he weighs.
Where do you guys have Jason Marshall
Kobe.
from Florida?
He would be decent in the early 4th. I have him in the early 4th.
Right. There's some injury concerns with him, right?
Yeah. Ankle?
Because I think in the preseason, Marshall was like consensus top 64, and he's dropped a little.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do like O'Donnell Fortune from South Carolina. That is late day 3.
So I think, like, I'm just looking at now, Kobe Bryant, 6 foot 180 is what he measured in at, 31.25-inch arm. So he's kind of like in that mid-tier arm length. He ran pretty good. I had him listed as like a zone corner that can play, is good in run support, kind of like a Buffalo corner from 2 years ago kind of feel, So I think he can play on the outside. Probably slots his better spot though, honestly.
Mari Harris as a mid-day 3 is a good one as well. He can play slot, tough guy on the inside. He's a good tackler, Iowa bred sort of thing. So I think he would be good as well.
Okay. Well, this worked out well. We have been going for like 70 minutes, so we should probably pause.
I didn't realize how long it's going.
I was going to say we actually got to an end point. Like we were like,
it's way better.
Okay,
it's sorry. Doing it on the podcast than it is on Twitter. Like that's the reason we started doing this. It's just way more fun to talk about it than it is to like.
Do we have like 2 minutes?
Yeah,
we have 2 minutes.
Right.
Do we have? Jim, do we have 2 minutes?
Oh, we have time.
Okay.
Alex, you want to introduce yourself? We have some new guests in the chat. They may not know who you are. So Sam Teets, it's great to see you. Meet Alex, but Alex, go for it.
Yeah, my name's Alex. I have a defunct YouTube channel that I'm going to reinvigorate here shortly. I show up on this channel from time to time, probably once every few weeks, something like that as it's gone on. But that's pretty much it. You can find me on Twitter at Buff Commander, which is the name of my YouTube channel as well.
Cool. Randall.
All right, at Randall Slifer. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky. Doing all my draft podcasting with Jim over at Draft Professors. And I'm doing some writing with Team NBS Media. If you want to check out that website, teamnbsmedia.com. I do some writing there as well.
My name's Jim. You can follow me on X. There we go, right there. At NFL Draft Fanatic, no I in Fanatic. The channel name on YouTube and X is the same. Please like, follow, subscribe. It really helps. The channel has grown fast, and it's grown fast because good people like you have hit the subscribe button. So please and thank you. We have daily draft podcasts on this channel. So this is Alex and Randall are the warm-up act. There's still one more podcast coming.
Rude.
Wow, in 15 minutes.
Hey, we got the primetime spot though.
Yeah,
there you go. Primetime spot.
I guess I'll take it.
Yeah.
So that's
you want to watch it 10 or 8?
Yeah. So Parker and Drew get the late shift, but Parker's also a couple of hours after us, or I guess behind us.
Oh yeah, he's West Coast.
I should say behind me because I know Randall, you're in a different time zone than me too. But
love that Central Time Zone.
But we have 2 podcasts every day. We have a 32 GM mock every Friday. So half of the team spots for Friday have already been filled up. But if you want to participate, go to the pin post on X for NFL Draft Fanatic and put your name in for what team you want to draft for, and we'll see if we can make it happen. Those are by far the best podcasts of the week, are the Friday nights. So hopefully we can see some of you then. We also have a couple of new people in the chat. So Dana, thank you for stopping by. It is definitely good to see you. And Sam, it's always a pleasure to see you in the chat as well. Sam has podcasted with us, I think, at this point, like 4 times. So
love Sam. Thank you, Sam, for being in the chat. Alex, you got 2 minutes, yeah? 2 minutes?
So real quick. Okay. So what are your top needs at pick 30? Like just off the top of your head. And you can even put in like, hey, I'm gonna, I'm expecting the Bills to address this need in free agency, and this is what I expect them to do.
Okay. So I'm gonna take away the pipe dream.
Yep.
It would be number one. Okay, I gotta think about this. Number one would be a top tier cornerback to be beside Christian Benford. My number 2 would be a good to above average wide receiver in free agency. Number 3 would be drafting a defensive tackle round 1, barring our top 3 that we talked about are there. Number 4 would be edge top 64. Number 5 would be wide receiver in second round or 108 in the likes of getting that second round free agency.
Okay.
Hit it.
So my desires, and this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, but you need to draft a Hall of Fame player, Brandon Beane, whose name is not Josh Allen.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's that simple. Yeah. If you see a Hall of Fame player, go get the Hall of Fame player. I'm just saying. And now I realize how dumb that sounds. Like I say it, but I also know how dumb it is. So ultimately, Brandon Beane needs to have a draft just like he did last year, right? He hit last year was the first draft that I remember that he hit every positional group on the team except tight end.
Right.
We got a defensive tackle. We got an edge. We got a linebacker. We got a corner. We got a safety. We got a wide receiver. Right. So we hit every position on the team with the exception of quarterback and tight end. My opinion is we need to do the same thing. So that's the theme of the draft. But ultimately, I would like to see the defense retooled. The order the positions are addressed is less important than I want another linebacker. I want a dominant one tech. So if one of the first 2 picks is not a player that can play one tech, Brandon Beane, you failed. But he's still a better GM than I am. But I'm just saying, like, you need a one tech.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Are you sure? I love Brandon Beane, actually.
Yes, he is top 3 GM in the league.
But I would
top 5 for sure.
What would be absolutely wild for me is if Buffalo actually drafted 4 defensive linemen
and was
able to keep all 4.
Oh my God.
Because that would imply we already have all 4 of our starters for next year under contract, right? We're in a different spot. Now, we can debate whether or not we like to conjure, right? We could debate that. But we have all 4 starters under contract. So if you bring in an influx of rookies, they don't all have to hit, but
one of them, 2 of them.
You're looking way better entering your 2026 draft where you could trade the farm and go up and get one guy. And that's kind of why I'm saying is make sure the whole roster is built. Because in 2026, that means you can trade up and go do a Julio Jones type transaction.
Right.
So that's kind of my roster building theory is hit every position group, save running back for last, but hit every position group, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like round 1, I think my big 5 wishes would be Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, Jihad Campbell, Matthew Golden are the big 4. And then I would probably say Nick Emmanwori would be the 5th. Get me a playmaker somewhere, and I think all those guys except Golden play defense.
Did I do the exercise wrong?
No, you did fine.
Okay. Then you go.
So Alex, how about you?
I think you start off with, okay, where are our major gaps? I think most of them are in defense, right? So we can probably all agree on that. We have a CB2 need. We've got what's he say? Oh, sorry. We have a CB2 need, a safety need probably, which is lower down the list because I don't think they're going to give him Taylor Rapp being a starter. We have an edge need that's probably the biggest overall impact need. And then we have defensive tackle because our run defense has not been great. And then on offense, it's just wide receiver, right? So clearly there's more needs on the defensive side of the ball. However, what I would say is at pick 30 in the draft, I have to think about it from a perspective of like, okay, if I'm Brandon Beane right now, before the draft, before free agency, I need to realize like, what's the likelihood of getting an impact player at pick 30? I think the most likely is defensive tackle, right? Because I think there's more likelihood, there's less impact on them making mistakes and things like that on the defensive line than there is at like linebacker or safety or corner. So I think defensive tackle's there. I think edge has to be addressed in free agency, whether that's a guy like Josh Sweat or if it's a guy like go swing hard for, Myles Garrett, right? And then for me personally, I'm not willing to take swings on athleticism or potential when it comes to edges late at pick 30. I'd understand it, trust me, but I just wouldn't have it on my board at all. And that sounds crazy, but I want somebody who can impact more than we already have. And if the difference is slim, the impact's going to be light. And I don't want that because we're going to have to wait for the edge guy to develop, So the second level for me would be maybe corner, but I feel like they don't like corner either. Like, I feel like the way Brandon Beane, the way Sean McDermott runs his defense is like playing corner and safety and linebacker are like positions that they come in and they wait a year to actually get on the field. So I have wide receiver as my second need at end of round one. However, I don't think he'd do it. Like Randall and you and I talked about this earlier. I don't think he's going to take another pass catcher in the first 2 rounds. I mean, maybe late the second pick of the second round, I could see him doing that. But ultimately, man, I just don't see it. I would not go edge. I wouldn't go safety. Unless Imanwari, I guess if he falls, I could understand that because of just the traits are just off the freaking wall. Like he'd be like, oh, he's got potential to be like Derwin James, Hall of Fame level player. Like you can't pass that up, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to end up deciding at the end of the day and at pick 30 between probably Collins and Harmon and Luther Burden and potentially maybe a Jihad Campbell, like you were saying, although I'm not really in the favor of doing a linebacker in round 1, but I think we're going to be underwhelmed by the spot there, right? So I do think that there's probably a potential for trade back again to accumulate assets. He wants his 3rd round pick back, I think. He showed that last year when what he did. I think he cares about that kind of thing, unfortunately. But I do think that it's easy to see the positions we can fill in free agency that have to be filled that we need because we have to win now. Like Randall, you and I have talked about this. Like we need it now. We can't like wait for guys to develop. Like we need to like hit the ground running, win a Super Bowl. We're done with like playing this future game with these guys. So that's why I kind of have edge off the board in round 1. I could see them getting like you said, like maybe late round 2 or round 4. I could see them doing it, but I just don't. I don't have it very high on my priority list, generally speaking.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say this. I believe that this offseason is probably the most influential and impactful season of Brandon Beane's career as a GM because he got Josh Allen. He got that right. He went and got Stephon Diggs in 2022 and Von Miller, or in 2020, and then Von Miller to go win that championship. That did not happen. Now we went into a rebuild mode and we overachieved last year. So now his decision is, do I keep these 3 picks and hope that they take us to a Super Bowl, or do I package those and go get something that could also get me a Super Bowl? I believe Max Crosby's still on the table. So you have to sit. There's literally, I mean, you could say there's three prongs, but I think there's 2 forks in the road. Do you bet on your 3 picks in the top 64 to take you to a Super Bowl, or do you package them and go get them? There's going to be scrutiny on both. We'll see what happens.
So I think there's a third prong to that fork.
Hit it.
So I think you're onto it. But I think very similar to what I said, you're using this draft to make sure your roster, top to bottom, has guys in their first contract at every position group, right? So, like, you want to make sure that you have guys on their first contract. You have them locked in for 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
Right?
Right. But you have to think.
You're going to take your 2026 draft capital.
Yeah.
You are going to trade after the draft. You're going to trade that capital to add that player to the team now. But I don't think that's going to happen before the draft.
Yeah.
And here's a couple of reasons that I'm thinking this. Buffalo is really close, and we literally were inches away. Like, this isn't an impact player. Like, when we acquired Von Miller, we had 0 pass rush in that game. Yeah. Right? In the game that we got bumped out of the playoffs, acquiring Von Miller was the answer to that, right?
Supposed to be the answer, of course.
Our roster is way better now than it was when we lost in 13 seconds. According to me.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, remember that defense. Remember that defense was a bend, don't break attitude sort of thing, and it was frustrating to watch there. That's why when it came down to it, it's the scheme and the roster construction on the defensive side.
The speed was lacking, and the Chiefs had a kryptonite for that with Tyreek Hill, and he just ate up the dudes. Now, I don't think it's the safeties problem that game. I think it was the corners problem because we had Levi Wallace playing on one side, and Trey White's never been a great athlete or anything like that. But I think in that game, like, we exposed that problem. Now, we didn't have a pass rush in that game either, really. I mean, there was a lot of problems, but that defense didn't usually break. It broke in that game.
Right. And there was it was like cover 2, shell, like 80% of our snaps were cover 2, just sit back up Patrick Mahomes. So we let those. But
anyway.
Yeah, that's it. No longer than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That's all right.
We gotta
let
these people go.
Yeah.
Chris Berman has the fastest 2 minutes. We have the longest.
The slowest 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, for the 42 podcasters at the Draft Professor, for Randall, for Alex, thank you everybody for watching. We will see you on a podcast again in about 2 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you.